Alright, how's it going, guys? Seeing an all-star player being traded is exciting. And whether that's because the team is rebuilding, perhaps the player is just part of a blockbuster deal that, makes each team better. Or maybe the player just needs a change of scenery. When an all-star gets traded, it brings a lot of excitement to, of course, hockey as a sport. It doesn't really happen very often, but when it does, it really shakes the hockey world and it really makes, the media go wild. Taylor Hall was drafted first overall in 2010 by, of course, the Edmonton Oilers. This was the first of 4 first overall picks, many top 10 picks that the Oilers would see within the near future. Back in 2010, the Edmonton Oilers were still kind of cooling off from, the 2006 Stanley Cup final appearance in which they lost to the Carolina Hurricanes. And luckily, after winning the draft lottery in 2010, of course, the draft lottery worked differently back then. Basically, the first place, or I guess the last place team, was just bound to get the first overall pick, unlike today with the whole lottery system, but that's another topic. Well, fortunately for the Edmonton Oilers that year, they got to choose between Taylor Hall, and Tyler Seguin, which is definitely a nice luxury to have. Then, of course, they chose Hall with the number 1 overall pick, and honestly, Hall, ever since his draft, has been a pretty strong performer on a lot of weak teams. He has had a lot of injuries, though, throughout his whole career. I think he's only played 1 full season, but, when he is healthy, he is a dominant player. June 29th, 2016, Peter Chiarelli and the Edmonton Oilers do the unthinkable, trading Taylor Hall 1-for-1 with the New Jersey Devils for Adam Larsson. Taylor Hall for Adam Larsson. Nothing against Adam Larsson. He's a solid top 4 defenseman. Obviously, he was the number 2 overall pick behind Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. But, Taylor Hall was in a desperate need of change of scenery. I remember when I actually saw this trade, Edmonton was just in a constant routine of being a super disappointing team. And of course, this was right after they drafted Connor McDavid and then had a disappointing season. And at the time, I definitely saw Edmonton's huge need for a top 2 defenseman. Adam Larsson, of course, didn't turn out to be a top 2 defenseman. He's more of a number 3-4 guy, perhaps a top 2 fringe defenseman. But at the time, I could understand where Peter Chiarelli is coming from. Of course, they already had a plethora of forward talent. They didn't have a lot on the back end. So acquiring Adam Larsson, it made sense. I'm not saying the value was there. I think even at the time, Taylor Hall had much more value. But, defensemen, they're valued differently than forwards for sure. And I really think maybe if this deal was Adam Larsson, another player for Taylor Hall, Adam Larsson, a first-round pick, Adam Larsson, a second-round pick for Taylor Hall, it would be a bit different the way that we see the trade. But, obviously this trade was kind of a flop. And the Devils acquired a very good player in Taylor Hall. However, Taylor Hall went from a very disappointing Edmonton roster to another disappointing New Jersey Devils roster. The Devils failed to make the playoffs in Taylor Hall's first season with the club. Taylor Hall played alright, he wasn't playing up to his obviously first overall status, but he played alright. However, miraculously, in his second season playing for the New Jersey Devils, Taylor Hall had a career year and got them back in the playoffs. The first time the Devils have been back in the playoffs since 2012, the days that they had Ilya Kovalchuk. Which of course landed Taylor Hall his first piece of NHL hardware, the Hart Trophy. Which actually, funny enough, was only a hair over Nathan MacKinnon. So Nathan MacKinnon nearly, and there's a big argument, could have won the Hart Trophy, back in 2017, 2018. Recently there has been a lot of rumors surrounding Taylor Hall and of course the New Jersey Devils, and that Hall doesn't want to keep playing for teams that just aren't playoff contenders. He wants to be on a winning team for once. And this doesn't really necessarily have to do with the Devils. This more has to do with the fact that Taylor Hall is now nearly 28. It seems like, I remember the day he was drafted. It does not feel like it's already been 10 years that we've seen Taylor Hall in the or 9 seasons. I'm not sure exactly what it is. And Taylor Hall has only made 1 single postseason appearance in his 9-10 seasons so far in the NHL, which so far, to be honest, he's just had a lot of bad luck. And it may be hard for us, consumers to see it, but I'm sure it'd be very frustrating for an all-star like Taylor Hall to never be on a winning team. After a couple years, after a 5-year rebuild, you can see you'd be like, that's frustrating. And he's been a part of now 2 complete rebuilds. And again, like 5 years, I could see a player being frustrated. After a 5-year rebuild, they're used to winning. And now imagine nearly 10 years of just no success. I don't blame him for being frustrated. He endured a lot of failure, obviously, with the Edmonton Oilers, only to be traded to the Devils, who, they went to the playoffs the season after he was acquired, but again, they had the number 1 pick in the 2019 NHL draft. Hall will be a free agent following the 2019-2020 season. And the last thing that, Devils fans and of course Ray Shearer want to see is Hall walking away to free agency. And if the issue truly is him just wanting to be a part of a winning team, and it's not due to the fact that he's, playing within the Devils organization itself, then there is, in my opinion, a bit of hope that he will resign. But again, it would not be a good situation for Devils fans and for the Devils as an organization for Hall to walk away in free agency like John Tavares did last season. And it really is interesting because, we don't often see superstars being traded. But when we do, it blows up the media. People were criticizing, of course, the Ottawa Senators so much for the return they got for Erik Karlsson. And I can't even imagine a return that would make everyone happy for Erik Karlsson. But considering that he could have walked away for free to free agency, some type of return is better than nothing. I'm sure many Islanders fans would be very happy to see more first-round picks and top prospects for John Tavares rather than him just walking to free agency and getting no return. So all this kind of begs the question, if the Hall contract truly depends on the success of the New Jersey Devils, will the Devils have enough firepower within their roster to be a playoff contender once again next season? Comment down below what you guys think. And the thing is, guys, there's no doubt that the Devils are a good budding team. And I truly believe that they will be a very successful team in the near future. But is their current roster enough? They just miraculously made the playoffs in the 2017-2018 season but fell from grace last season. Ray Shearer has done a lot to rebuild this team. And of course, winning the draft lottery and selecting Jack Hughes number 1 was a great start. And I'm sure that has to bring some hope to Taylor Hall and his camp. I believe Jack Hughes will take a bit longer to develop to his, his first overall status. However, I do truly believe that he will still be an impact player next season, and I would expect around 60 points, which is already a massive improvement to the Devils' depth. Also during the draft, the Devils of course acquired PK Subban from the Nashville Predators, and I truly believe also that I guess the Devils have a good budding defensive core. In adding PK Subban, his cap is a bit steep, but I do believe that obviously acquiring PK Subban is really going to help their defensive depth. And depending on some guys like Ty Smith, if they do pan out and make an impact, make the team next season, the Devils could have a decent defensive core. And of course, adding Russian superstar, or I guess potential Russian superstar, Nikita Gusev was really the cherry on top. And so all the additions they made this offseason is definitely nice. But let's take a look at the rest of the roster, take a look at their depth charts, and truly make our opinion on whether they can be a playoff team. In center, they now have Nico Hischier, Travis Zajac, Jack Hughes, Pavel Zacha, and some other prospects. So when I look at their center depth, honestly guys, not bad. Nico Hischier is probably going to be the number 1 guy next year. He's been developing really well. I don't think he's going to be, obviously he's not going to have the same potential as a guy like Jack Hughes, but he's definitely going to be a solid 1B, 2A type guy. Can fill in the first line, he can be a decent first liner, but he'd probably be way better off, way more effectively used on a second line center role. Of course, then we have some other guys like Travis Zajac, the veteran leadership. I still think it's great for them to have a guy like Zajac within their, their veteran leadership role. Zajac is still producing at a good rate, so if Zajac can kind of fill in that third line role, I'm not sure what the dynamic there is going to be with Jack Hughes. That's still great. Jack Hughes, of course, I think is going to come in and make a decent impact. I'm sure Ray Shearer and the Devils are going to try to kind of ease him into the lineup. I don't think he's going to be rushed into big minutes right away. And that's where it's good that they have a guy like Zajac who can play 2 or 3. And then Pavel Zacha, of course, also plays the wing. He's listed as a center. I know he does play the wing a lot for the most part. But honestly, guys, so they have the big 3, and they're kind of missing some depth still. There's other guys like Kevin Rooney. Sure, bottom 6 forward, but Not necessarily a good bottom 6 shutdown guy, but other than that one missing piece, their center depth is pretty good. Now, the only thing I worry about is if we see any injuries, the center depth is just not enough. On left wing, we have Taylor Hall, Miles Wood, Blake Coleman, Nikita Gusev, Brett Seney, Jesper Bokvist, and some other prospects. Taylor Hall, of course, is a bona fide number 1 winger. We have some other guys like Miles Wood, who's third line scorer who can kind of fill in on the second line. Blake Coleman, bottom 6 guy. Nikita Gusev is definitely going to be, I guess, and Jesper Bokvist is definitely going to be the wild cards. Nikita Gusev is obviously the recently acquired Devil. He's now 27, but he is coming off a monster season playing the KHL, putting up 82 points in 62 games. And I know we've seen other Russian players in the past kind of come in and they weren't necessarily able to transition that well. I'm not saying Nikita Gusev is going to be that guy, but if we look at a guy like, for example, Artemi Panarin, and if Gusev can kind of come in and make anywhere near the impact that a guy like Artemi Panarin makes, then already the Devils lineup looks way better. I wouldn't set my expectations that high, but if he's able to come in, put up 50, 60 points, I think the Devils would be happy. On right wing, we have Kyle Palmieri, Wayne Simmons, Jesper Bratt, John Hayden, Joey Anderson, and some other prospects. So Kyle Palmieri, of course, has had a really good career in New Jersey. He's a really good, solid goal scorer. Puts up 20, 25, 30 goals. Good veteran leadership, who can play kind of first line, I guess a first line, 1B. He's more of a second line scorer in my opinion, but can definitely play up and down the lineup. And another very interesting wild card, of course, is Wayne Simmons. Wayne Simmons, of course, the Wayne train, is a really good, solid, complete player. However, there is a lot of question marks, surrounding Wayne Simmons. Will he follow his trend of kind of declining, or will he have a big rebound season in a new organization like the Devils, who have, of course, a lot of great young talent? Jesper Bratt is a good, secondary scorer, kind of fill in within the second line, probably better off as a third line scorer. And then we have some other prospects. Not a lot of bottom 6 depth. Again, if there's injuries here, I could see some issues. But if Wayne Simmons can, go back to old Wayne form, Kyle Palmieri keeps doing what he's doing, Jesper Bratt keeps improving, then again, this is a pretty solid right wing. I still think they're missing some more bottom 6 shutdown guys. And again, they're kind of thin, but if they remain healthy, then this right wing is good. It's great. Now, on defense, we have PK Subban, Damon Severson, Sami Vatanen, Will Butcher, Andy Green, Mueller, Connor Carrick, Ty Smith, and some other prospects. PK Subban, of course, he's a reliable guy. You don't know if you're gonna get Montreal Canadiens PK Subban. You don't know if you're gonna get the Subban we saw last year. But I think on any roster, Subban's obviously a very solid top 4 defenseman for the Devils' sake. I'm guessing he's gonna be the number 1 guy. And then we also have Damon Severson. Damon Severson's, he's a very solid top 4 defenseman who just came off a pretty decent season. Sami Vatanen, good two-way defenseman with some good offensive upside. Same with Will Butcher, good two-way defenseman with good offensive upside. Andy Green, the veteran leader. And probably the biggest wild card here is Ty Smith. Ty Smith, of course, was drafted 17th overall in 2018. He just came off a very good season in the WHL, putting up 69 points in 57 games, and even taking home Defenseman of the WHL award. Kind of looking at through their whole lineup here, I think their defense may just be one of their stronger sides. Of course, injuries, will they remain healthy? But for the most part, they have a very good top 4. PK Subban, Severson, Vatanen, Will Butcher. They do have a very good top 4, and if they remain healthy, I can see this being a pretty good defensive core. Alright guys, and last we have goaltending. And this is probably the biggest question mark in the whole team. So we obviously have Corey Schneider, Mackenzie Blackwood, and that's it. So Corey Schneider is one of those guys that I would love to see have a big rebound year. Of course, Corey Schneider traded for Bo Horvat, the whole thing. They were so excited. But in the past 4 or 5 years, he has just been declining. However, in terms of rebound candidates for next season, Corey Schneider may just be one of those guys. The Devils, this offseason, are going to be a completely different team. There's going to be a lot more energy within the roster, within the organization. And if Corey Schneider can turn around his game and kind of try to get back to the goalie he once was, the Devils are going to be a decent team. They're going to be a team, I'm not going to say is a playoff lock, but they're definitely going to be a team that's competing for a wildcard spot. There's a lot of injury history on this team, which makes me say someone's bound to get hurt. However, you know, if they remain healthy, they have a good team. They don't have a lot of depth. They're pretty thin on talent. But if they do remain healthy, I can see this team perhaps being in a wildcard spot. Now, there's going to be a lot of the teams like the New York Rangers who they're going to have to battle for the spots. But, you know, if Corey Schneider can, you know, be better than last year, if Corey Schneider can get back to kind of his game, they made a lot of improvements this offseason. And I think they have a good chance. And so, kind of going back to the topic of this video, I think that they have a good chance of being a good team. And for New Jersey's sake and for all the fans' sake, I think Taylor Hall will resign if that truly is the reason. And if not, you know, a trade should happen. Do not let him walk away to free agency for free. But anyways, guys, that is just my opinion. Definitely let me know what you guys think down below. Anyways, guys, see you guys later.